Okay, so there's some funny things and then there's some not funny things associated with this reparations package recommendation from the African American Reparations Advisory Committee, which, by the way, even the name is misleading because they say African American Reparations Advisory Committee, but there's no requirement for the person who might qualify for this $5 million payout in the city of San Francisco. There's no requirement that the Black person actually be from Africa. There's no requirement that this person be a descendant of a Black person from Africa who was enslaved in the United States when slavery was legal. None of that. So this is actually the furthest that reparations proposals have gone, but it's not surprising. This is what we predicted would happen because reparations were always a disguise for redistribution of wealth, and it was a disguise that counted on people, maybe you and I, being fearful to engage in this conversation because it's a difficult conversation about race, to talk about, well, yeah, we had slavery in this country and it was awful. And it certainly did have ramifications that were downstream ramifications. It wasn't just the people who were enslaved whose rights were deprived. Of course, that has effects, like they were deprived of education. So, even when they were freed, they weren't allowed to work a lot of places. We had discriminatory laws, especially in the South in our country for years, for decades. Of course, there's downstream effects of slavery. I don't think anybody on the conservative side is denying that, which is why the Democrats have chosen this in recent years as one of their pet topics. It's not because they have what's best for Black people in our country in mind. It's not because they actively are pursuing policies that will help Black people achieve prosperity. It's not because Democrats are trying to propose solutions that would close this so-called income disparity between Black people and white people in our country. It's not because of that. They're doing this as a way of trying to sneak past us, the government seizing the power to redistribute goods and property in the name of justice, even though what they're calling justice is not just. So what I want to do is I want to look at this recommendation package from the African American Reparations Advisory Committee, because $5 million, that's a lot of money. $5 million, who qualifies for this? If you live in San Francisco, how do you get your hands on $5 million? By the way, one of the funniest things, there are 50,000 Black people that live in San Francisco. I do think this is pertinent. 35,000 of these Black people in San Francisco are above the age of 18. So one of the first qualifying factors is that you have to be 18 years old or above. And I can test this right from the beginning. It's so funny what standards they put as qualifying factors in this proposal for reparations, because what makes an 18-year-old qualify for this $5 million package but not a 17-year-old? If the premise of these reparations is that slavery notwithstanding, just the policies, the political policies that have existed in San Francisco for the past 60, 70 years have put Black people at a disadvantage. Why would a 17-year-old not qualify, but an 18-year-old qualify? So even right here, like, you can't do a project like this. You can't have a policy like this because there's no way to actually do this fairly. There's no way to actually do this justly. But the purpose of this is to say that there's 35,000 people, Black people in San Francisco who are above the age of 18. You can do the math, 35,000 of them times $5 million. There's no way that San Francisco has the money to fund this. And there's even been city officials in San Francisco who have said, we don't have the money to fund this. And other officials that said, well, this is more of a symbolic gesture. We want to establish that this is what we believe Black people are owed. And then there's been critics, even on the left, who have said, but we don't want a symbolic gesture. What about something more realistic that could actually happen?